All right, man, peace. So, brothers, we're now up to episode 3 of the series that I've created, R. Kelly's Accusers Put on Trial by Chronicles of Judah144. And this episode 3 will be featuring Miss Sparkle, one of Robert Kelly's former proteges, who was semi-famous in the early 2000s, and who also acted as the procurer for the transaction that brought the young girl of sex tape fame into R. Kelly's world, into his vicinity. And once again, we're going to see another example of a modern day liberal female who's trying to separate herself when it comes to any culpability in the overall act that occurred between R. Kelly and that young girl, when at the end of the day, everyone knew by that time that R. Kelly had a history of dealing with young females, young ladies, young girls, whatever you want to call them. So for her to facilitate R. Kelly being left alone with her own niece makes her just as off, just as wicked, just as evil as he is, because she knew his history already. She could not say, well, I was totally unaware that he was attracted to young girls. I had no idea that he would do this to me or to my niece or what have you. All that's bullshit. I'm a grown man, and I'm sure that any grown man out there would not leave their daughter, their niece, their whatever in the hands of a strange man, even if they had no information on that man having a history of dealing with young children in a sexual way. That's just not something that you do. To be honest with you, brothers, the only question that I have in my mind is whether or not Sparkle purposefully brought her niece to R. Kelly to be used for sexual favors in exchange, or in the hopes that R. Kelly would make her a superstar and maybe her niece a superstar as well. Or if she just did it and tried to make any thoughts of a possibility of something off-putting occurring in the background of her mind or in her subconscious, or tried to repress it or what have you. A lot of these people out here bugged out and crazy. So anyway, they're going to talk about it. I'm going to chime in.
When I began working with R. Kelly, I did background vocals. I was hanging out with Robert at his crib. You know, the fellas were around, and I was the only girl.
I'm sure you felt special. It was all fellas and just you.
We were watching the Chicago Bulls playoff game. And I kept hearing this knock. And I'm just like, okay. Robert hasn't moved. He's focused on the TV. Knock again. And I'm just like, do you hear that knock? I'm like, somebody's knocking, Robert. And he leans back and he said, yeah. And she peeks out the door. His wife, Drea. And I was like, oh, hell no, to myself. She wanted to come down to grab a bite to eat. She asked him, is it okay if I come down to grab some food? And he was like, yeah, come on. And I was just like, wow. Never could be me.
Well, we know that already. You have an Ice Cube's chance in hell of landing a man. So we know that your attitude is that you're just going to barge in and do whatever the hell you want. Now, don't get it twisted. I understand. That's R. Kelly's wife. That's her house as well. So she should have been able to come down into the kitchen and get something to eat. But I would not have assumed that she had to ask R. Kelly's permission to eat whenever she wanted to eat, just because she would have asked him, is it okay if I come down? Some people are polite like that. Some people don't want to interrupt whatever the vibe is that is going on in the room. So when someone like Sparkle says this, of course, she's trying to act as if she's putting out an energy that is meant to controvert the level of oppression that R. Kelly was exerting on his wife, the alleged oppression. But in reality, she's just letting out of the bag why people like her cannot maintain a real relationship with a man. There has to be mutual respect there. Even if your woman has her homegirls over and maybe they're talking in the living room or what have you, you're not just going to enter into the room and try to intermingle yourself or undercut their conversation or what have you. You're going to excuse yourself. That's a part of decorum. That's a part of manners or what have you. Now Sparkle is going to shed some light on R. Kelly's creative process. And I think that she's also going to reveal what a lot of this is really about. And I noticed this over the course of watching this 6-part documentary. It's very clear to me that so many of these females are actually jealous of the musical gifts and talents that R. Kelly has. His ability to create music out of thin air. He can arrange, compose, sing all of his own music. And so many of these females are jealous of the fact that he can do that. Therefore, they're enraptured by him because of his gift, at the same time being repulsed by the fact that they can't do what he can do. And also because he's so demanding of them and has such a ruling class mentality over them, they feel like they're slaves because they cannot escape the sense of worship that they have for him. And that's really the point of a lot of this. A lot of these females are frustrated because they didn't have the willpower to say, I don't want to be around this guy. So now what they do, they get on TV and they try to demonize him for expressing his own standards, however perverse, quote unquote, anyone might consider them to be. Most of these women are upset with themselves because they did not have the willpower to say, no, I'm not dealing with you anymore. Because they were trying to get something from him and they never got what they wanted from him. So now they're bitter and they want to try to air him out on television.
Robert and I spent a great amount of time together. The process of working on my debut album was crazy.
Well, let's be for real. When you said the process of working on your debut album was crazy, Robert did most of the creating. Your job was to be an actress and act out what he wrote for you and what he composed for you.
The concept for Be Careful came from controlling Robert.
Well, it's difficult for me to accept that he has a control issue when it's obvious that his real issue is that he's just more gifted than you. And that's what you're really upset about. You understand that your career was in his hands, and because you never became a superstar, now you want to blame him for being controlling.
He thought of the concept for the song, and he wanted it to now be a duet instead of just me singing.
So in other words, he was trying to help you out. He put a guest feature on your album when he was already pretty much, if not a global superstar, certainly a national superstar. You should have been thankful for him and thankful to him for blessing you with his contributions. Because here's what we know. We know that you're nowhere near as gifted as him. Those are just the facts.
He thought of everything.
Of course he did. It's already been established that he was the mastermind behind everything.
He thought of the video. He thought of the clothing. He's a visionary, so he thinks of the steps.
That's normally how most geniuses work. They're able to conceptualize whatever idea they have in their head and make it plain to the person that they're trying to instruct. And if need be, they can actualize what they're conceiving in their brain. That's part of what makes creative individuals so special, that they can take ideas and manifest them in the real world.
Where do we go now? And how do you want me to walk? And where do I want to see me driving down the street? And how do I flip my hair? He has all that down. So, yeah, that's him.
He's a great actor, just like you.
Robert didn't allow pretty much anyone to speak to me.
I wonder why. That's normally what we hear from females who are fucking him. Did you happen to be one of those females, Sparkle? Could that also be a reason why you were so upset about what you allegedly found out occurred between himself and your niece? Is it because you were jealous that you found out that you were just one in a long line of concubines? And that all his proteges get the business, not just you?
I'm just walking around, hey, everybody, hey. And then I'm just like, what's going on? Why aren't these people speaking back?
Because they're doing their damn job. Do your damn job.
Come to find out, they couldn't speak to me. He wouldn't let them. That's not me, because I'm going to speak to everybody and anybody and whoever I want to speak to.
R. Kelly was probably like, no, this bitch fucking around. She got to concentrate on the song that I wrote and the treatment. She over here hobnobbing. She better keep this shit on the down low.
So when I learned that, I would go out of my way to speak to people just to tick him off.
And interestingly enough, Miss Sparkle here also is wearing a red string for the Kabbalah on her left wrist.
Off, because I'm just like, look, you can't tell me what I can and cannot do. I'm not that girl. I'm not that chick. You can't stifle me. But I didn't know that a bomb was coming.
Well, what do you think was going to happen? When you try to contain an explosion, it's only going to make the bomb blast that much more powerful. R. Kelly wasn't thinking about your ass. That's why you came and went. I didn't even remember this broad until I saw her in the documentary. I'm like, oh, that's the chick from so-and-so. Glitter. Oh, I mean Sparkle. That's a name.
Young girls are impressionable. Like,
old girls are pretty impressionable also.
Like, he's R. Kelly. Now, look who I get. Look who's showing me interest. He's charismatic, funny, and he's an all-around nice guy.
Wow. Wait a minute. You mean this person, R. Kelly, you accuse him of being oppressive to his wife, of sexually abusing your niece, and you describe him as being a quote-unquote all-around nice guy? Sounds to me like you're a jilted lover, Miss Sparkle. You sound like someone who misses that old thing. Brothers, once again, when I watched this entire series, the main energy that I got from most of these women is that if R. Kelly were to hit on them, he can get the draws that night from any last one of these females who decided to partake in this hit piece against him. Most of them still want the rock.
But Robert is a master manipulator. Like, everybody knows it now.
Well, I'm not doubting that he's a master manipulator. My only contention or pushback would be that with him being one of the top musicians in the world, one of the top artists or singers in the world, a large part of art or creativity is understanding how you're going to tap into certain fibers within the human consciousness, to make them vibe how you vibe. You have to find their wavelength or find some type of communal wavelength as an artist, as a creator, so that what you do resonates with them. So, of course, it's going to come off like you're a manipulator. Or maybe you are a manipulator, but that is part and parcel to being a great artist.
When I first introduced my niece to Robert, it was at 12 years old. I asked my sister and my brother-in-law to bring her down to the studio.
Why would you do that for? Your niece is 12 years old, and you wanted to have her brought down to the studio to meet R. Kelly. Knowing what we all knew, even by the mid to late 90s, that he was someone who had a proclivity for dealing with young girls. Why would you do that, Miss Sparkle?
To meet him. She was a rapper.
What was she rapping about at 12 years old that she would be someone who should meet R. Kelly? You never thought about that? You never said to yourself, you know what? Let's let her finish elementary school and high school, and then we can give her opportunity to get into the music business. We already know R. Kelly. We already have inroads to the music industry or the entertainment industry. Let's let her mature, figure out if that's even what she wants to do. And then when she turns 18, 19 or whatever, if she wants to start college or, whatever it may be, then we can introduce her to R. Kelly and then hope that he's willing to assist her. And still we're going to moderate the situation and monitor the situation. Instead, in your mind, you said, she's 12 years old. She could put a couple words together. Let me bring her down to another grown man who already has a known public history of dealing with young girls. Leave them alone and see what happens. I got you.
She was a dope rapper, too.
She was a dope rapper, and you were a singer on dope, allegedly.
She was Bow Wow status when Bow Wow was back then. She was that status. I wanted him to do.
You wanted to make money off of her by mimicking Bow Wow. That's what you wanted. You most likely wanted some type of finder's fee and also a management fee. You were hoping that you could create the Chicago version of Little Bow Wow. And everything blew up in your face. You feel guilty about it to this day because you know that in your subconscious mind, you knew that part of the deal was that Robert was going to be making love to or having intercourse with your niece. That's what I see. There's no other conclusion that I can come to when we're once again talking about a grown man who married a 15-year-old girl. That's what R. Kelly already has on his public record.
To do what he was doing for me, for her. Because I saw that hunger, I saw that drive, I saw that wanting to be bigger than life, if you will. Because she was that.
Sparkle, I hate to break it to you. You were never bigger than life. Okay? You were a one-hit wonder from the late 90s, early 2000s. That's all you were.
She was totally that. And he saw it too.
He saw something. I'm not sure if he saw the talent that you claim he saw, but he definitely saw something that he wanted.
Initially, my niece would come down to the studio with me because she wanted to see the ins and outs of how I was working and just be around the vibe of it all. She would sit on the couch. I would go in the booth and do my thing, and I wouldn't take my eyes off her.
This bro said she would go in the booth and she wouldn't take her eyes off her niece. That's another guilty conscience revelation spilling out. Well, I was watching her while I was singing in the booth. Right, but were you watching her at all times? Isn't that your job to watch your niece while you're singing in the booth? It's your job to watch her at all times.
There were a couple times that I came into the studio while I was still under Rockland that my niece would be in the studio room. And I would walk in like, what you doing here?
So let me get this straight. You're supposed to be the adult, and your 12-year-old, 13-year-old niece is at R. Kelly's studio without your knowledge, and most likely without her parents' knowledge. And the only thing that you have to say is, what are you doing here? Okay.
Who's here with you? And she's like, oh, I got dropped off. Robert's having a Christmas party or some type of party, and it's going to be a lot of kids, so we're all going to stay, at his house and, have games. And
So what game did you think that they were going to play, Sparkle? Pin and tail on the donkey? I guarantee that's the only game that they played. Did you ask her who it was that dropped her off at R. Kelly's place? Did you confirm with her parents that she was supposed to be there? Did you confirm with R. Kelly that there were going to be any other children there? Did you say to yourself, let me stay here and wait and see if this is actually going to be a real party? Did you do any of that? Or did you just say to yourself, you know what? It sounds a little fishy, but let me just remove myself because at the end of the day, R. Kelly's writing my checks.
And I was just like, okay. I was pissed when I saw her in the studio by herself. My parents were strict.
Oh, give me a fucking break. Brothers, I can't stand when these modern day liberal females start ranting and raving about how strict their parents were and how when they grew up, they were so different from the females today. Brothers, I grew up in the 90s. The chicks back then were liberal whores, the vast majority of them, just like today. So this nonsense about how they grew up and their parents were so strict. Your parents were so strict, but you had no understanding of what your niece was doing. So please, spare me with all that bullshit. Your job when you saw your niece was to call her parents immediately and confirm if they had an awareness of where she was and why she was there. Your second responsibility after that was to confirm that what she was saying was actually true. That being that there were going to be a multitude of children attending a so-called Christmas party at R. Kelly's house. After that, your third responsibility was to act as a chaperone over your niece. That was your one job. You failed.
Strict. We couldn't stay over or be around nobody's house. We couldn't spend the night at nobody's house if they had boys.
Well, how about grown men? Because you left her there with a grown man, right? You're rambling on about this story about how you were not allowed to stay over at anybody else's house if they had boys there. But I presume that you left your niece there with a grown man. So what's really going on?
You just with Robert being supervised? Okay. I thought I left my niece in good hands.
Bro, did you hear this bullshit? She just finished talking a gang of shit about how strict her uprearing was. And now all of a sudden, she said that she left her niece in R. Kelly's hands by herself. And she thought that she left her niece in safe hands. When you just stated that your parents would not even leave you at a slumber party if there were going to be boys there, but you left her with a grown man. Once again, a lot of this is the mass projections of silly females with guilty consciences. That's really what the issue is.
But think of a grown man hanging out with young girls. It just felt like I just shouldn't have introduced them. Something ain't right.
Yeah, something definitely not right in your skull. There's something missing in there. And I'd be pretty much willing to bet that if they were to x-ray your skull, there's probably just a marble in there rolling around. What type of adult, or at least responsible, conscientious adult, leaves a small girl with a grown man overnight? Must be a damn fool.
It still haunts me.
What haunts you? Your stupidity? You must be having nightmares every night then.
You know, it shouldn't have happened.
You can only blame yourself.
I should have never introduced her to him. How dare you?
Hey, so-called black man, protect your seed, man. Protect your seed. Even though I'm really addressing this person, Sparkle, right now, and just attempting to shed some light on her attempt at a testimony and her attempt at trying to shift blame over to R. Kelly, there are a lot of factions who are to blame here. Not just Sparkle, not just R. Kelly, also the little girl's parents, who also must have been aware that something was going on with their daughter and R. Kelly, that she's always going to this person's house. It's just that in their mind, they told themselves that if he's able to make her a star, it will offset whatever's being done to her. I promise you that those thoughts were occurring in their subconscious, and they just kept them there. But they were ruminating around in there for a while.
Chicago sometimes contacted me and wanted me to come down to their offices to view tapes that possibly had girls on it that I may have known.
That's interesting. So the Chicago sometimes contacted you. Is there a remote possibility, brothers, that Sparkle was someone who was utilized to try to set up R. Kelly, and who sent her niece to R. Kelly as part of a sting operation to maybe take him down for what the Chicago PD knew that he was doing for years with other girls all across Chicago? I'm not saying that that is exactly what happened. I'm just saying that there's a remote possibility that that is what occurred.
On the tape, my niece has the same hairstyle she had when she turned 14. That was her, for sure. And that was him, definitely.
You said that was him, definitely. In other words, you saw R. Kelly's naked body and you knew that that was him, definitely, immediately. Once again, I believe that Sparkle was also engaging in some type of sexual back and forth with R. Kelly and maybe got upset and jealous when she saw her niece there with him, even though she knew that that is exactly what was going to occur. I'm not leaving any stone unturned with a lot of these possibilities and probabilities, especially when I see how these people move. There's no way in the world that you're going to make yourself a sympathetic figure when you hand your niece over unattended to a man that you already know has a history of having sex with girls who are pubescent, meaning around the ages of 12 to 14 years old. There's no way in the world that you're going to tell me that you're so shocked and appalled by what that person did when he's already shown that he's done that in the past.
Like, you hear things, but to see it visually, and for her to be so young.
Brothers, you hear that? She said that she would hear things, but to see it visually. Once again, she already had foreknowledge that this is what R. Kelly liked to do, but she still brought her niece to that man and left her unattended, and had the nerve to try to offset that by stating that when she was young, her parents would never let her hang out unattended at a party where they knew that there was going to be a male presence, even little boys, much less grown men. But then goes on to say that she leaves him with R. Kelly unattended. So the only conclusion that I can come to is that either she did it on purpose to try to get her niece to a level of superstardom and herself to a high level of superstardom, and she knew what was going to transpire, or it was a sting set up by the Chicago PD using herself and her niece as pawns. And maybe her niece was an unwitting pawn. Do I believe that the second option is the more likely option? No. I think that the first option is the more likely option, but I'm leaving all possibilities open, because when we're dealing with a creature, with an entity like a liberal or super liberal modern female who contradicts herself within sentences by first saying what her parents would not allow her to do, and then saying what she allowed herself to do and her niece to do, that tells me that we're dealing with someone who's not mentally stable. And they have no understanding that they're not mentally stable, because this society tells most of these modern day liberal females that they're okay when they're not.
You really, like...
Of course it fucked you up. You finally understood the profundity of what you were involved in. You were a procurer of your niece. Basically a pimp for your niece. That's what you did.
It's over with, but it still haunts me. You know?
It should.
And I hate this that it happened. It shouldn't have happened. I should have never introduced her to him. I should have never introduced my family to him.
No shit.
How dare you? How dare you?
It's a pretty good performance, almost in time for the Oscars.
What are you doing, Robert? Like, I never thought he would do that to my family.
Why?
I don't know how the Sun-Times got the tape.
Sure you don't.
Who dropped it off, who sent it, who threw it. I have no idea.
Once again, brothers, for all we know, Sparkle is the one who set up the whole thing, purposefully set up R. Kelly working with the Chicago PD or the feds or what have you to try to ensnare R. Kelly. Who the hell knows? Maybe she got a kickback. Maybe she was upset when she was told that one of her projects was going to be shelved. Maybe she realized that she had put herself in an advantageous situation after she brought her niece to R. Kelly to make her a star and herself a superstar. Things didn't quite work out. She knew about R. Kelly's stash and she found a way to get one of the tapes. But something is right in Denmark with this person and with this entire story. No doubt in my mind about that.
There was a money transaction from Robert to my niece in the beginning of this videotape. After the money transaction, then there was a transaction.
So let me get this straight. Your niece is on video having sex with a strange man, and you're here making a joke about the money exchange that preceded the intercourse. I got you.
If you understand what I'm saying.
Yes, I understand what you're saying. You're depraved.
A sexual transaction. And I didn't need to see any more because I knew it was her.
So interesting, this character Sparkle. Of course, you brothers can't see it because it's just a still photo. But once again, she's wearing the red string for the Kabbalah on her left hand, which tells us that, what, she's an initiate in the craft. She also has on, of course, the white and the black. So she's certainly down with the program in more ways than one. She's someone to watch.
I was pissed. I'm like, who would do this?
Check the mirror.
Not only was I pissed at Robert for filming it, I was pissed at the person who put this out because I'm like, look, it's a little girl on this tape.
So you're more upset with the person who put out the tape than you are with yourself for being the person who hooked them up in the first place in real life. Whoever it was who created the tape certainly put you in a better position, because after R. Kelly realized that there was a tape, whoever it was who had copies will be able to extort him. And I would be willing to bet, no matter what you say, that you tried to approach R. Kelly for a little bit of change in order for you to not talk on the witness stand or to not give your version of events or what have you. I'd be willing to bet on that.
Why would y'all do that? One young exec stated, I don't care if that is him on that tape, because we can't afford to lose him. I was like, wow.
Yeah, you got jealous, didn't you? But then again, that's why you guys are coming for R. Kelly right now, because he's nowhere near as powerful or relevant in the music industry in 2019 as he was back in 2000, 2001, 2002. So once again, to play out the ritual of Orpheus, after Orpheus was no longer as prominent as he once was, he was no longer the seducer of females that he once was, he turned to dealing with young boys. He turned into a pederast. That is when his female fans, aka the Maenads, turned against him. The Maenads, of course, were venerators of Bacchus, but they were also easily seduced by Orpheus and how he played the lyre. They ended up tearing him apart limb by limb. And that is what is being done to R. Kelly right now.
That's some serious. Can't afford to lose him. And you don't care if it is him on this tape.
Well, wait a minute. Why should he care? According to you, you were upset at R. Kelly for making the tape, and you were also upset at the person who distributed the tape. So are you mad about the tape being made and distributed, or are you not? Because now you're upset at the record exec for not caring about the tape, when you yourself stated that you were upset that the tape, number one, was made, number two, was distributed. So once again, you're speaking out of both sides of your mouth. And normally people who are, involved in a situation, they're the ones who speak out of both sides of their mouth because they're trying to throw people off of the scent.
With a young girl, I was like, that shows what type of person you are.
Absolutely. The record exec was almost as bad a person as the type of person who would leave their niece in the home of a strange man overnight. Almost as bad.
I called my oldest brother. And I told him that I just had seen a tape. And it showed our niece on it. I didn't want to bring it to my sister because I don't know how to bring this to her. I couldn't really keep my head in the game at this point.
Well, the real reason why you did not want to tell your sister about it is because you would have had to explain your part in the entire situation. And it was very clear that you had issues communicating with your sister properly all throughout this entire ordeal, because once again, why did you not have open communication with her about what her daughter was doing at R. Kelly's house outside of your knowledge? The first thing that you were supposed to do was call or text your sister and ask her if she was aware that her daughter was at R. Kelly's house by herself. That was the first thing that you were supposed to do. You did none of that, which once again leaves only two options. Either you purposefully did that, knowing that R. Kelly would do something with your niece and hoped that it would put you in a better position for your career and her career, or you're just that damn stupid.
What mattered was me protecting my family or me protecting my niece,
As usual, the liberal female has to cast herself as the protector after she's already made a series of bad decisions.
That's all that mattered to me.
Supposedly. Now that you have the tape, that's all that matters because you have enough evidence to get what you want out of the situation, or at least you hoped.
I was estranged from the family. They felt like I was tarnishing the family's name. Tarnishing the family name? No. Rob?
Or maybe they felt like you were up to no good. Maybe they felt like you were coming to them, trying to cast yourself as the hero, the person who's going to try to take down R. Kelly after you were the one who brought their daughter to him in the first place. So maybe they were suspicious about what your motives were.
Robert tarnished the family's name by putting our niece, your daughter, out there like that.
No, not quite. Robert could not have tarnished the family name because he's not a member of your family. That's number one. Number two, he did not publicize the tape. Somebody else did. Maybe you. Who the hell knows? Number three, even if he was the one who pressed and made copies of the tape, he did not state the girl's name on the video. You were the one who was trying to make sure that everybody knew that that was your niece, because once again, you were hoping for a money windfall, as well as hoping that you could bounce back on another record label, most likely. That's presuming that you were not working with the feds or the police department in the first place. But something's definitely up with you. There's no doubt about that.
Once I came out publicly, there was a lot of blowback. People were unbelieving. People thought I was hating.
You were.
People thought I was jealous.
You were.
Jealous. People were run the gamut of loaded and unloaded that people were saying about me, about my family, about my niece, her being a little fast girl. Like, come on, she 14.
Well, there certainly was an issue with your niece. I'm not going to cast aspersions on her as being quote unquote fast or what have you, because young girls at that age, as well as young boys at that age, they're very curious. So when you place them around outside forces that are meant to tempt them, they're not even going to understand that they're being tempted by something that they're not really ready for. That is why it's your job as the caretaker to act as a chaperone and as a moderator over the entire situation. Once again, the biggest failure in this entire situation was you. Unless your goal was never to protect her in the first place. Your goal was to use her as bait. And if that was your goal, then you succeeded.
She's 14 years old. The adult is supposed to know not to touch that.
No, actually, the adult is supposed to know not to put her niece in a bad situation. Stop trying to pass the buck over to R. Kelly. You're supposed to assume that another strange adult wants to hurt your child or your niece or what have you. That's how you're supposed to walk through life until your child is old enough to take care of themselves.
I remember being at my brother and sister-in-law's house and the detectives showing us stills. It wasn't a pretty sight. They showed my niece, Robert, and another young lady.
So they show your niece, Robert, and another young lady. And at what point in the conversation, when you were there with your brother and your sister-in-law, did they ask you, where were you when all this was going on? Because I'm sure that they entrusted you with their daughter. I hope that they were smart enough to not entrust R. Kelly to preside over their daughter by himself. The main mistake that they made, at least from the outside looking in, is that they believed that you were going to be conscientious enough to preside over the whole situation. So that's where there's a disjointing.
I can't remember any artists speaking out against Robert regarding this tape.
Why would they? He was one of the most popular artists in the world at that time. He was not only a master singer, but a master songwriter. They were not going to bite a potential hand that could feed them. He was a hit maker back then.
It made me feel like I didn't want to be a part of this industry that I had grown to love.
Well, what does that say about you? That you were actually considering leaving the industry, but you only saw the wickedness in it when your niece was subjected to a major portion of what the industry is about, which is sex magic. Everyone in the industry is having sex with everyone else. Everybody knows that. And if you're not willing to open yourself up in that way, you're not going to get very far. Once again, if you're not interested in becoming a pansexual, if you're not interested in the worshiping of blood, if you're not interested in the worshiping of the sun and of the bull god and of the goat god, the entertainment industry is not for you. If you can't grasp that, you're going to figure it out sooner than later.
One of the things that was laughable with Robert trying to profess his innocence was that was his brother Kerry on a tape.
Well, let's be for real. One of the main reasons why he probably tried to throw his brother under the bus is because his brother most likely has been locked up before. So R. Kelly probably figured he could accuse his brother of being that person, hook him up with a few $100K, and everything would be straight. Or at least that's what he's probably hoping.
He definitely does not look like Robert. You can tell them apart. That was laughable to me because I'm like, really? You gonna throw your brother there now?
Yeah, almost like how you threw your niece under the bus when you left her unattended at his home. Kind of like that.
A former music protege of Kelly, Sparkle has publicly declared that the girl in the video is her young niece.
Hey, brothers, listen to that. Sparkle claimed that she was upset with R. Kelly for making a tape. She claimed that she was upset with whoever distributed the tape. But she seems to be the main person trying to publicize not only the tape, but the fact of who the person on the tape is. Isn't she supposed to be the person trying to stop her niece from being embarrassed? Why would you go out of your way to make sure that everyone who watched the tape was able to ID who it was that was on the video? Unless you were somehow complicit or involved in the tape being made or masterminded in the first place.
I felt partially responsible because I introduced my family to him.
You're more than partially responsible. You're mostly responsible.
And it felt like it happened on my watch.
It felt like it because it did.
Robert's legal team was basically trying to say that, I just was out for money and...
Why would they say that?
And I was bitter.
Why would you be bitter unless you used to be an old flame of his?
They offered me upwards 6 figures, high in the 6 figures, for me and Robert to have a sit down with all media around us to say that Sparkle and I are okay. We're kumbaya. I didn't take the money because I can't be bought.
You can't be bought for 6 figures. You can't be bought for 6 figures. I'm sure they hooked you up with something else and you're still talking right now. So it's very obvious that whatever your price was, they were unable to meet it. That's the real issue.
I'm gonna stand up for my family.
You gonna stand up for your family? Come on, man. You left your 13-year-old niece unattended at a strange man's house. You're the worst babysitter in history.
When I came forward, it was important to me to stand up and tell the truth during the trial. And
that's a strange way to put it. It was important for you to stand up and tell the truth, as opposed to what? So there are times when it's not important for you to tell the truth?
Be a witness for the prosecution in the trial. My oldest brother did get on the stand, and he said that it wasn't her. It wasn't my niece on the tape.
Of course they're going to say that. What else are they going to say? They have to live in Chicago still. If they're trying to be Confederate with any overt attempt to incarcerate R. Kelly, they have to leave Chicago.
I don't know what my family was thinking. Like I said, we were estranged. For 10 years, I didn't speak to my family.
Isn't that strange? Her entire family was estranged against her for 10 years. No one in her family spoke to just her. So that tells me that there must be an outstanding issue that her family has always had with her. That maybe she's someone who's always involved in chicanery or skullduggery of some sort. And they suspect that she was the person who orchestrated this entire situation from the very beginning. That's what I suspect. And I just find it very interesting that, we've yet to hear from the actual family. All we hear from is her. She was the person who got the niece involved in the first place, and she's the person speaking the most about how she was trying to seek out justice. And you can't have it both ways. You can't be the reason why it happened and also be the hero.
Family, because of it.
Just knock it off. Your ass should be in jail. You're talking about R. Kelly. Your ass should be in jail.
I think that Robert wasn't convicted because my niece and sister and brother-in-law didn't come forward.
Oh, you think? You think it makes it easier for someone to get off of an accusation when the supposed recipient of the alleged crime does not also state that the crime was committed against them? You think that it makes it easier for someone to be exonerated when that happens? Ding dong.
Regarding criminal cases, if there is no willing participant, then really there's no case. I really don't know if my family was paid off. I know the family.
Is that what you're upset about? Are you upset that they might have gotten more money than you wanted?
The family was still hanging out with him. My brother-in-law was still playing guitar on a lot of his songs.
Bros, once again, what does it say that an entire family chooses R. Kelly over her? And I'm not saying that he was not involved in some form of adulteration of their daughter. Who knows? But I think that there are certain messages that are being conveyed just off the notion that the family sided with him over someone in their family like Sparkle. And there are many people like this in various families who are just shit starters and agents of chaos. They go around trying to create disharmony and disorder and then come back on the back end and try to act as if they're the person who's going to restore balance and placidity, so on and so forth. And after a while, people figure them out and do not want them around any longer. And this person, Sparkle, comes off like that. And she certainly is in the craft as well. There's no doubt in my mind about that also. And she's trying to figure out how she can keep her name alive by lynching R. Kelly. That's all this nonsense is really about.
And that's what it is.
Yep, that's what it is, Sparkle. Hopefully you can find a way to get your career back going. That's exactly what's hot in the streets. 45-year-old R&B singers. We'll see what happens. But anyway, brothers, peace.